What's going on, everybody? Busy day yesterday. Hey, got my boy here. He's still feeling pretty puny. He's struggling a little bit today. Got fixed yesterday, so yeah. That's why my coffee cup was in the wrong place and went dead again, and now I'm using another one. My sister-in-law made this one. Ramblin' Clay Co. on Instagram. So today, let's this is funny. This is gonna just be some thoughts that my brain went crazy places. My coffee cup wasn't charged right, and I'm like, man, that is not like me. I'm pretty process oriented. Like every day, you know, I don't typically like lose a pocket knife, for example, because I put things in the same place. When I go to bed, I empty my pockets and I have a certain spot, and when I wake up in the morning, I take choose a watch, choose a pocket knife, choose do all the things, like in an order. And of course, me and the dog, we have our little routine. I'm pretty particular about stuff. My car's always clean. Um, you know, um, the the lawn is always cut. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of like that. And I was thinking that it it sort of it's one of the reasons why I'm so particular about my guitar stuff. I'm not anal about my guitars. I was noticing yesterday how many scratches and stuff the back of my Les Paul has because I play it all the time, and I was like, that's kind of cool. Um, but instead of being in a world, and here's where it translates to the guitar stuff and how we do videos and how we do reviews and all. The formula on YouTube, technically, most of the time is this guitar destroys that guitar, this guitar, the whole just as good as thing, this thing makes that thing obsolete. This piece of wood or this pickup or this whatever changed my life, some sort of huge thing. And if you disagree, then you're obviously just defending a purchase that you regret. That's what happens. That's what happens. And my brain doesn't go that way. My brain is like, and I think I do know that people don't understand this because it's possible that they just have a different personality is where I'm going with all this. When I see two things, I don't think which one is better. I might get there as a result, but when I see two things, if I see two guitars, two cars, two pocket knives, two whatever, I never think which one is better. I don't want to say I never think that, but that's not the first place that I go. If I pick up two pocket knives, I look at each of them individually and look at what I'm like, okay, this pocket knife is X amount of dollars. It's made out of these materials. I like it. The design is overall really good. It's pretty neat, etc. I don't like this little thing and I don't like that little thing. Now, I will tell you in the very beginning that if this is a $50 pocket knife, I'm probably not going to buy it because I don't need to, because I'm in a different place with would I recommend it to somebody? Probably. But I don't need it. But that doesn't mean that it's better or worse. And then I go and look at this more expensive pocket knife that I'm more interested in, not because it's more expensive, but because there's some different processes and materials and stuff that I'm more interested in and I think is neat. It doesn't make anything better or worse. I'm just analyzing each thing. The problem is that if you don't do that, like if you don't compare things, then it's like, I swear, people think it violates the YouTube terms of service. Like you're supposed to just make things this versus that. And it does work better because people want to see that. But, I think my brain, it literally goes to what is it more than is it better? So if I cut something up, it's literally because I want to see what's inside. If I take something apart, I want to see what's inside. I want to see what it's made out of. Whether that's relevant or not to anybody else, the reason I'm there in the first place is because I want to know. That's really, that drives everything. My entire family's like that. We took him to get him fixed yesterday. And of course, we get him home, and Leslie's researching all the medications, wanting to know what they actually are, et cetera, et cetera. Like, right. Some people will just be like, okay, it says take 2 of these and, whatever. Not around here. Hey, buddy, you okay? Not around here. I mean, I'm not saying that we wouldn't take people's recommendations, medical recommendations, but a lot of times that might be a bad example because I think you should do research. But everything doesn't matter. If I'm gonna buy a new keyboard, I had to buy a new keyboard lately because my Apple one died. So I bought it and I did a bunch of research. Not super sold on it, to be honest with you. I just really, really dive into everything. How does it work? How do these mechanical keys work compared to a butterfly key on an Apple keyboard, right? Like that kind of stuff. I just want to know. I want to know craftsmanship. I want to know engineering. I want to know origin of the company. I want to know how they market. I want to know everything. And most of the time I do it pretty emotionless. And then a lot of times sometimes I'll just throw the technical information out the window and buy emotionally. A Les Paul Jr. is an excellent example of that. I have a bunch of those and they're my favorite guitars. And they're not great. They're not the best designed guitar. They don't have the best bridge. They don't have the best, right? We could go on and on and on, but I don't care. But I do know what they are. I do know how they're made. I know why they're made. I know what they're for. I know how the bridge works. I can set it up so that it intonates correctly. Like, I know all the technical stuff about it. And then I just made an emotional purchase anyway, which is really, really fun, in my opinion. The problem is that the internet, when you make videos and stuff, it doesn't reward that. Everything has to become a battle. Everything has to become an argument. Everything has to, challenge somebody's identity, because your identity, and it doesn't do it on purpose. I'm just saying that's what happens because, your identity is so tied up in your guitar. Picking sides and all that kind of stuff. It's just an easier package to put together than, hey, I'm curious about this. If I say, hey, I'm curious about this, then people won't watch it. Unless I'm curious about this, I'm going to cut it in half. And then people hate it because you cut it in half. Because the guitar is sacred. We did a video about that the other day. But to me, better or worse is the least interesting part. And I know that other people find that interesting, but this is where I differ. This is where people don't like what we do. This is where, because I want better for me personally. When I can afford and I'm in the situation to do it, I will always get better. Because if it's something that I care about, but that is not what drives my curiosity, and that is not what drives what I do every day. So obviously we're trying to make a better product. I'm not trying to be better than anybody though, really. We're just trying to make it good. We're trying to make a premium product here. And yes, does it improve most guitars? Yes. But it doesn't improve all guitars. Like, our pickups don't even improve all guitars. Our pickups change your guitar, but it might not improve it. It's not better or worse. This is how it works. This is what it does. You decide whether you need what this does and how this works, right? I'm not saying my pickups are better than somebody else's. I'm not saying my pickups are better than Gibson's. I'm not saying right? It isn't, to me, again, it's not about better or worse. It's about, this is cool. And I know how this works. And so I can make this change because I've analyzed all this stuff, and I can make this change, and I can make this one do something different than this one. That's pretty neat. So it isn't about better or worse. It's like with the pickup stuff, it's like 32 flavors, right? It's just different flavors. I don't like Superman ice cream. You might. That's the only one I don't really like. I don't like pistachio ice cream either. So instead of which one is better, what's different about it? What's different from this guitar to that guitar? Do I like that? Would that drive me to buy that guitar? That's really the question. right? And when it comes to quality stuff, what trade-offs were made to keep it at a particular price point, uh, which claims are facts, and which claims are just inherited stories on the internet. You know, headstocks don't just pop off Gibsons. They don't. And if you're a reasonable human being, you know that, right? If you're a comment section dork, you're going to say that and regurgitate that. But you know, if you're an actual person with an actual brain, that they don't just pop randomly off. You have to drop the guitar. The guitar has to be abused or accidented in some way, right? It doesn't just spontaneously happen. For example, you can set up a Floyd Rose fairly simply, right? You can set up a Bigsby to stay in tune. You can set up a three saddle bridge on a guitar. So better or worse doesn't matter, right? Better or worse is one of those things. It's like it's not relevant to most people or it's not relevant to a group because each person is going to evaluate differently. This guitar is pretty much the same as this, but it has this and this feature that are better. Yeah, but if those two features don't matter to you, then there's no difference between those two guitars, right? And I think that's what happens between like real expensive instruments and real inexpensive instruments. Once we get past that functionality, people are like, well, this doesn't affect the tone. Well, okay, maybe it doesn't. But I like this, and I'm willing to spend the money on something that you don't think is important. No big deal. No big deal. Because I want to know how it works, and I'm interested in the process. I'm very interested in how Fender Custom Shop does their stuff. I've seen it. I'm very interested in the Murphy Lab stuff. I'm very interested in a lot of boutique guitars because when you get into boutique guitars, there's so many different ways to build a guitar that, you know, it isn't better or worse. It's just a different process. And I think we just go down this list of things that should be better or worse, and then assign a financial value to it, and then it just doesn't mean anything after that because you just made up your mind. And I'm like, that is so, I don't know, it's just so mind narrowing to me. My brain is more like, screw the better or worse thing. Like I just want to know how it works. Like I'm super like, how did you get this pattern on this cup? How does it work? You know, I have no interest in pottery, right? I like using it. I think it's awesome, obviously. But my sister-in-law and my brother own a pottery studio, and they sell and maintain kilns and like all this stuff. And he's explaining to me when you rebuild a kiln and how you change the filaments in it to keep it, and it's a whole resistance per foot thing. It's just like a guitar pickup, really. It's the way it works. It's just a resistive coil. And he was explaining to me and how many ohms per foot and whatever, and what you have to do to, you know, all this stuff. And I don't care about it. I'm not going to get into it or anything, but I wanted to know how it worked for no reason. But what I did do is I learned about the people, because you learn how particular they are. You learn what it means when you have this thing and how it works and how the heat does and glaze. And I don't know anything about it all, but I was just really fascinated to learn about it in the moment. And I think if you continue to do that, you're always going to get, you as a person are going to get better whether your guitar does or not, right? And I think that's where even the skill of playing guitar doesn't matter. I would rather see a person. I think it would be neat to see a person. I don't want to make anybody do anything. That is genuinely curious about an instrument and buys that instrument, even if they're not that good, like me, who has a bunch of premium guitars. But the reason I buy them is because look how this works. This is super cool. And I'm really interested in this. And I'm genuinely interested in the process, how it's made, all the story around it. I think that's really cool. And I think interesting people want those interesting stories and they want to learn all that interesting stuff, right? It's instead of, you know, this guitar is just as good as that one. Like, okay, I've learned everything I need to know about you. But if somebody's like, oh, you know, the reason I got this is because, and they tell this whole story about their dad and their uncle and whatever, and you know, and then he learned this one thing one day and found out this random fact, and then that was pretty neat, so it drove him to this brand and whatever. And now you have a whole conversation and you're learning about each other, and it's super cool. Instead of, well, my guitar is just as good as yours. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, so the better or worse thing, it just drives me insane. Uh, and I think a lot of times it's not what I want. It ends up being what I want a lot of times once I have a lot of information, but that's not the motivation. Um, you know, so when we're thinking about this and when we're making videos, when I'm making videos, and you see me make comparisons between stuff, I'm literally not thinking, well, I'm trying to pick the best one. I'm never thinking that. It's weird. I was thinking about that this morning. Like, I'm not trying to, when I do it in videos. Now, when I'm doing something for myself, yeah. But that's not usually the case either. If I buy a new pistol, I'm not trying to find the best one because there is no best one. If I'm trying to buy a watch, there is no best one. If I'm trying to buy a pocket knife, there is no best one. I am literally interested in the materials, the processes, and that draws me to that brand. That I'm really interested in a Hawk Talon, and it's made by these two brothers. Well, one of them I think passed away. Super neat. It's not an inexpensive knife. It's a very expensive knife. I have to save for it. Super cool. Interesting functionality of how the pivot works and the lock and all that stuff. Super interesting knife. That's why I want it, right? Is it better? Is it worse? Yes, it's expensive because of who made it and how it's made and stuff. But that's not why. I want it because it's interesting, right? The way it works. I want it because it's interesting. And I think most things are like that to me. All things are like that to me. I don't think, and I think if we all did that, I think if we were all just truly interested in the stuff and focused on that, and it's like what we bought or what we purchased was almost secondary to that, I think everybody would be have more cool things to talk about. You know what I mean? I think they'd have more cool things to talk about if you literally were just, hey, check this cool thing out. You know, instead of, you know, making everything into a competition. I know this is super random, but it's what was on my mind this morning. Normally I have a bit of an outline and think this stuff through some more, but not today. Not today. We're worried about ballless dog over here. He's not worried. He's just still in his really dumb. Where's he at? Hey, Bob. You okay? Yeah. He's still. Hey, buddy. Yeah, he's still feeling a little puny today. Anyway, we'll see you guys later.